Backgammon has a grand total of 15 possible opening rolls, so learning the optimal move for each roll should be simple, right? But when a computer's neural network was applied to understanding the possible openings, some of the findings were surprising, going completely against most people's instincts and changed the way the game is played forever. Can you guess the best moves for each opening roll? Give it your best shot here on Legendary Tactics. I came across some interesting material online. As many of us know, computer-based neural networks have been applied to allow computers to dominate humankind in chess and Go, and then the same algorithms were put to backgammon. As I said at the beginning, there are 15 possible opening rolls. This is because the player that goes first is decided by each player rolling one die, and whoever rolls highest uses the results of both dice to begin the game. Doubles are re-rolled and are therefore not possible as an opening roll, so the scope of possibility gets reduced a bit. But what are the best opening moves for each die roll? I think you need to look at two criteria. The first involves positioning. What gives you the best position now and going forward? And the other is risk. Leaving a single checker exposed can be risky as your opponent can hit them, sending them to the bar. To keep things clear, we will use the standard numbering system, and we will play as white. So let's start with the easy ones, and we'll build up from there. Stick around to the end of the video, and you'll see the ones the computer optimized that almost defy common sense. First of all, the famous one, the Lover's Leap as it is known. What would you do with a roll of 11? If you play backgammon at all, you should know this one already. If you don't worry about it, and take a few seconds to guess. The best move for this roll would be to move from the 24 point to the 13. This is because you are able to escape your opponent's home board completely. Next up are ones that are great rolls to get, and they share a common theme. They're risk-free and give you a great position. Here's one example for you to think about, the 3-1. Take a moment to consider what you'd do. Here's what to do. This sets up a nice block for your opponent and protects your checkers nicely. This principle works as well for rolls like 6-1, for 4-2, and for 5-3. So that takes care of 5 rolls out of the first 15, and those ones were easy. Now we're going to get into some subtlety. The next selection of possible opening rolls are going to be a lot less obvious, sometimes even boiling down to playstyle and preference. It might also be indicating a defensive versus offensive approach, which would depend on the current score. However, the computer modeling did narrow things down to 2 or 3 possibilities. I'll show you each of these optimized moves, ask your opinion, and then I'll share my thoughts. The first one up is a roll of 2 and 1. What would you do with that opening? I'll give you a few seconds. The computer gave the 2 following openings as optimal. The first is point 13 to 11 and then 6 to 5. This was the preferred option. A reasonable alternative was 13 to 11 and 24 to 23. Which of these would you prefer? For me, I like this one. Perhaps because my playstyle is more passive, along the lines of a gammon save than a gammon go style, I see too much of a risk in playing 6 to 5. A lucky roll here can send that checker back to the other player's home board, and the only benefit being that you can potentially set up a better lockdown of the opponent's 2 checkers in your home board early on. The next rolls we'll look at are 4 and 1 and 5 and 1. The reason to look at these 2 in conjunction with each other is because the optimal openings are very similar. What would you do with either of these rolls? If you roll 4 and 1, you're best to do this: 24 to 23 and 13 to 9. And if you roll 5 and 1, you're best to do this: 24 to 23 and 13 to 8. The other viable option is to do this with 4 and 1: 13 to 9 and 6 to 5. And with 5 and 1, you would play 13 to 8 and 6 to 5. So which one works best for you? Again, I lean towards the first one in both cases. I see next to no risk in advancing the checkers in my opponent's home board, as getting hit won't set you back much, and spreading them out increases your odds of a beneficial roll if a single enemy blot is exposed within range. I just don't like leaving a blot open in my home board, which could be sent to the opposite home board at a loss of a lot of pip count and morale on my part. But again, obviously, if you can shore that up quickly, it makes it a lot easier for you to block the opponent's checkers in your home board. But no matter what, a roll of 4 and 1 or 5 and 1 is not ideal, so you're making the best of a bad situation. Next up is a roll of 3 to 2. You gotta love these low rolls. What would you do with that roll? According to the neural network, here is the preferred move: 24 to 21 and 13 to 11. The alternative, which was almost as good, was 13 to 11 and 13 to 10. Which one do you like better? For me, the first one, the preferred play, is the one that appeals to me the most. While it may not be as common to have a blot hit in positions 12 through 7 on the first move, I see the alternative opening up a potential issue on a roll of 9 or 10 by your opponent, and could be troublesome, especially if your opponent plays aggressively. While it is not listed here, I don't necessarily see a problem with playing 24 to 21 and 24 to 22, but that was not one of the optimal plays according to the neural network. Next is a roll of 5 to 2. What would you do with that opening roll? Here's the preferred play as given: 24 to 22 and 13 to 8. The reasonable alternative, which is almost as good, is 13 to 11 and 13 to 8. Which seems best to you? For me, I see either one as viable. Even though the alternative option has a little more risk, there's only one blot exposed, and that's at point 11, which requires a relatively unlikely roll of 10 by your opponent. I think it's a reasonable risk to take. Then we have 6 to 3. What would you do with this opening roll? Here's the preferred play in this case: 24 to 18 and 13 to 10. The alternative option, interestingly, is 24 to 15. Which one seems to you to be a better play? Personally, I like the 24 to 15. The main reason is that it only exposes one checker to being hit. With the 2 checkers in the opponent's home board, I always have the feeling that they're escapees, barely beyond the walls of the prison, running for their lives. Sometimes you just have to go for it. But either option opens you up to some risk, and sometimes you can't avoid that. Now we come to the last 3 potential opening rolls, which have the most workable options. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to like and subscribe down below, and comment if you like on any of these openings if you feel strongly about one of them. It helps our channel and helps us to provide more content like this. So the first of the flexible rolls is 4 to 3. What would you do with that opening roll? In this case, there's one preferred play and 2 common alternatives. The preferred play is 13 to 10 and 13 to 9. The 2 alternatives are very similar, either 24 to 21 and 13 to 9, or 24 to 20 and 13 to 10. Which of these 3 most catches your attention? Again, this roll is not ideal, so you're making the best of a bad situation. As you might have guessed, I would be fine with either of the 2 alternatives. The preferred play that is suggested strikes me as almost a human wave approach, where you give the opponent so many targets they just can't hit them all. But in many games against an AI over the years, as well as live opponents, it seems that many times risky play is punished, and so I would only play the preferred option if I needed to be aggressive because I was behind. Next one up is 5 to 4. What would you do with that one? The preferred play here is 24 to 20 and 13 to 8. The alternative plays are 13 to 9 and 13 to 8, or the big one, 24 to 15. Which of those three looks best to you? For me, I like running for freedom, and I would probably go with the 24 to 15. I see the 13 to 9 and 13 to 8 alternative play to be more risky than the preferred play, so I would be open to the preferred play, the first one, as well. And finally, we get to the last roll on the list. This is 6 to 4. What would you do with this one? Here, the neural network's preferred play will likely surprise you. The preferred opening is 24 to 18 and 13 to 9. The reasonable alternatives, again almost as good, would be 8 to 2 and 6 to 2, or 24 to 14. Which one works best for you? For me, there's no question that I would take the first alternative play to seal off my 2-point. Alternatively, I could run for the hills with 24 to 14, but I love setting up obstacles on my home board for my opponent to contend with. I'm not going to miss out on the opportunity, mainly because it forces the opponent to play around me and potentially make suboptimal moves because they have less options available to them. Overall, I found the neural network's preferred plays to be quite aggressive, but obviously it must have worked out over millions of games in order for it to be recommended. I hope you found this video interesting and valuable. While I've played backgammon for years, I haven't studied the traditional openings that human players have developed over many decades. The self-trained neural network that played millions of games of backgammon in order to develop these preferred openings apparently altered the common wisdom on the topic unexpectedly. So if you are like me and beginning to internalize your best possible plays, I hope this was of help. Thank you so much for watching. This is NATO with Legendary Tactics.